They told you debt is evil. They told you to pay off your mortgage as fast as possible. But that is advice for the poor, not the wealthy. In this story, we will see how one man went from debt-free and broke to leveraged and rich by simply changing how he looked at the bank. Stop letting your equity die in your walls. Learn how to use it. In the suburbs of Chicago, there lived a man named Jason. By all traditional standards, Jason was winning the game of life. He was 45 years old, worked as a senior project manager for a logistics company, and most importantly, he had just made the final payment on his 4-bedroom house. He was debt-free. At Sunday barbecues, his friends would raise a toast to him, calling him the smartest guy in the room because he didn't owe a dime to the banks. But late at night, when the guests left and the silence settled in, Jason felt a knot in his stomach. He was debt-free, yes, but he was also cash poor. He had spent the last 15 years pouring every spare dollar into the concrete walls of his home. Now he wanted to start a business. He had a brilliant idea to launch a logistics consulting firm, a business that could potentially double his income and give him the freedom he craved. But there was one massive problem. He had no capital. His money was frozen in the house. One rainy Tuesday, Jason met with an old college friend, Marcus, for coffee. Marcus was different. He didn't have a high-paying job, yet he drove a luxury car, traveled 4 times a year, and seemed to have zero stress. "I don't get it, Marcus," Jason admitted, stirring his black coffee. "I followed all the rules. I paid off my mortgage, I have zero debt, but I'm stuck in my cubicle because I can't afford to quit and start my business. You have mortgages on 5 different properties, yet you're the one who is free. How?" Marcus smiled and leaned in. "Jason, you fell for the safety trap. You think wealth is about having no payments. I know wealth is about having options. You see, you look at a bank as an enemy to be defeated. I look at a bank as a partner to be leveraged." Marcus took a napkin and drew a simple diagram. You have $500,000 sitting in your house doing nothing. It's dead equity. It earns 0% interest. In fact, you're losing money to inflation every day. I, on the other hand, run a business of buying cash flow. I use the bank's money to buy assets that pay me. That conversation sparked a fire in Jason. He realized that his paid-off house wasn't a trophy, it was a warehouse of the potential energy that he had locked away. If he wanted to build a business, he had to stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a capitalist. The next week, Jason made a terrifying decision. He went to the bank, not to deposit money, but to take it out. He applied for a home equity line of credit, HELOC. He unlocked $300,000 of the equity he had spent years building up. His hands shook as he signed the papers. To his old mindset, this was a step backward. He was going back into debt. But Marcus had taught him the difference between bad debt, which you pay for, and good debt, which someone else pays for. Jason wasn't going to buy a sports car or a boat, he was going to buy his freedom. He used the capital to put a down payment on a small distressed duplex on the edge of town, and kept the rest as operating capital for his new consulting firm. The first few months were nerve-wracking. Jason watched the balance on his HELOC statement every day, a reminder of the debt he had taken on. But soon the math started to work its magic. His tenants in his new duplex paid their rent on the first of the month. That rent covered the mortgage payment on the rental property, the insurance, and the taxes, leaving Jason with $400 in pure cash flow every single month. Simultaneously, his consulting firm began to gain traction. Because he had the capital from his house to invest in proper marketing and a professional website, he landed his first major corporate client within 3 months. This client alone paid him more than half his previous annual salary. Jason realized something profound. When his money was trapped in his house, it was lazy. It did nothing. Now, that same money was working 2 jobs. It was securing a rental property that was appreciating in value, and it was fueling a business that was generating active income. 2 years later, the market shifted. A small recession hit, similar to the one that had terrified Jason in the past. His friends, who had paid off houses but no extra cash, panicked. They couldn't sell their homes because the market was down, and they had no liquidity to survive the job cuts. But Jason was in a different position. Because he had kept his access to cash open and had income-producing assets, he didn't panic. In fact, he doubled down. He used the profits from his business to buy another distressed property at a discount from a seller who needed cash desperately. One evening, he met Marcus again at the same coffee shop. Jason looked different now, not tired and anxious, but energized. "So," Marcus asked, sipping his espresso, "how does it feel to be in debt?" Jason laughed. "It feels like freedom, Marcus. I realized that the bank isn't the boss, the asset is the boss. My tenants are paying off my debt, and the tax code is rewarding me for providing housing and running a business. I'm writing off the interest, I'm depreciating the assets, and my net worth is growing 3 times faster than when I was just trying to save my way to safety." Jason pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a graph. "If I had kept my house paid off, I would have saved maybe $20,000 in interest over 5 years, but by leveraging that equity, I've built a business worth $2 million and a real estate portfolio worth $1 million. The risk wasn't in taking the loan, the risk was in staying stagnant." Jason had learned the ultimate lesson of the wealthy in America. The middle class works for money to pay off debt. The wealthy use debt to buy assets that work for them. He went home that night to his 4-bedroom house. It was still the same house, but it felt different. It was no longer a tomb where his money went to die. It was the engine that had launched his empire. He realized that a paid-off house is a trophy for the finish line, but leverage is the vehicle that gets you there. Jason slept soundly, not because he owed nothing, but because he owned everything.